Hi, I'm Oliver. Welcome to my channel, where I sporadically update about my increasingly deteriorating mental health. So today I'm going to talk about BPD, as I'll put in the title. I was diagnosed last November in 2018. So I'm just going to talk about it today. And if I end up going off on tangents, it's because this isn't scripted. I tried doing that for my last video and it didn't turn out so well. Um, so yeah, I'm assuming either you have BPD or you know someone with BPD, because I really doubt this is going to end up in the YouTube algorithm, and it's not going to be on trending or anything. So if you find this video, it's because you searched for it and probably filtered out the new videos or something like that. So my BPD is kind of the quiet type, as you might have seen a few articles about that. Sorry, I haven't squint because my glasses reflect. So let's go over the 9 symptoms of BPD, and I'll talk about my experiences with them. So fear of abandonment is like the first symptom. I have difficulty actually relating to this symptom because I don't have any like friends or family that are nearby that I talk to, because I kind of self-isolate, and I think that might be my form of fear of abandonment, where I kind of abandon people before they can abandon me. So I'm not the kind of person who's gonna freak out if you go to the bathroom or if you don't text back, although I might for not texting back. But I think my most recent experience with this was when I met a guy, just a friend, kind of, in university, and I was quite eager to make a new friend because I'd been in university for a few years and I hadn't really met anybody. But I was really eager to get to know him, and he wasn't as eager. I guess he kind of saw me as an acquaintance, just someone he met at university, a classmate, and he made it pretty clear that he didn't want to get all chummy with me, really. And the first night I hung out with him, he said that I was taking things a little too deep, like I was talking about heavy emotional stuff. And I noticed that the entire time I knew him, there was kind of a wall between me and him. Like, he didn't talk about anything personal, really. Mostly just talked about movies. And so I kind of found myself distancing myself emotionally, just as a defense mechanism, I guess. And I ended up not speaking to him after a while because things in my life changed, I guess. And he wasn't the type to contact me first or anything. And I'm not really the type of person to chase people up, really. Like, I've got friends that I've had since I was 15, and we're lucky if we talk to each other even once a year, even online, because I just don't really see the point in keeping up to date with everybody for every week. The second symptom is unstable relationships with people, or idealizing and devaluating people, whichever. So in high school, this was really prominent when I made my first friend, like my first proper best friend, long-term friendship. It was with a girl I met on the first day of high school, and I idealized her pretty much the entire time. And it was to the point where people were like, she's not actually as good as you think she is. Are you sure that you can't see her flaws? And I just couldn't really. I guess I've not really been in a relationship, like a romantic relationship. So it's kind of hard for me to really explain that one. But with this girl, we were friends the entire time throughout high school. I think I ended up kind of developing a crush on her, but it was really hard to figure out, because did I like her because I hadn't had a friend before and this was just overwhelming fondness for a person for the first time, or was it actually a crush, that kind of thing. I think mostly the unstable relationships were mostly in my family, kind of splitting, going from idealizing to devaluing the people in my family. I don't really remember much of my life as a teenager, so it's hard to explain the symptoms in that I had back then. Third symptom is unclear self-image, and I definitely struggled with that. Like, I think I mentioned in my other video about OCD, where I had a 2-year episode where I was just absolutely obsessed with my personality. And I mean, to this day, I'll still take personality tests, and I've accumulated a big long list of like traits from personality test results in the hopes that it will all combine into one personality. And I think this kind of ties in with the second symptom, because personality traits are kind of how people see you, and because you act differently around different people, it's hard to find a stable sense of self because you're always acting differently. Even when you're by yourself, like, I still have struggles with trying to figure out my values, what I want to do in life. And I mean, everyone kind of struggles with that at some point, but it gets to the point where I lose sleep over it, and it gets a bit obsessive. Yeah. The fourth symptom is self-destructive behavior. I think mine tends to show up more as binge eating and overspending, mostly on food, but there has been times when I've overspent on really random things. Like, I spent £100 on a bike in the middle of winter, and then I ended up selling it a few months later because I rode it twice, because it was winter and obviously I couldn't go out on my bike when it was icy on the ground. I have a video about my bulimia, since I also, well, you'll see if you watch that video. So the self-destructive behavior doesn't include self-harm, because that's the next symptom. I think this ties in with symptom number 7, which is chronic emptiness. So that one's feeling bored, and then you end up doing things to get rid of the boredom, I guess. The feelings of emptiness. So yeah, I started self-harming when I think it was either 2016, 2017, and it was just for the most bizarre reason. Like, I wanted people to take me seriously, like mostly the doctors. It doesn't feel like it was a manipulation attempt, or like, just, I guess it was just really a cry for help, because I wasn't getting the help I needed because no one was taking me seriously. I was getting treatment for mild depression, and mine is more moderate to severe. And so yeah, I still do that sometimes, the self-harm. I had a recent episode, I guess, this month, the beginning of the month. Yeah, it's not very pleasant, but, you know, just a part of it, I guess. The mood swings. Now, I actually found a study that showed that people with borderline personality disorder actually go through anxiety, anger, and depression more often than they go from depression to elation. And I see a lot of people talking about hypomania, and either they're comorbid with bipolar, or they're mistaking their BPD happiness with hypomania. Like, I can understand why people would do that, because, you know, with hypomania you've got the impulsivity and talking a lot and just acting hyper, I guess, and you know, that kind of ties in with BPD, because the self-destructive behavior and being impulsive is kind of part of it as well. So it's easy to see how they could be similar. But I spoke with my psychiatrist about bipolar before I was diagnosed with BPD, and he said that because I wasn't acting out of character during my high moods, that I didn't have bipolar disorder. But he did acknowledge that they were high moods, so I guess that means that I truly do have very extreme mood swings. I haven't had any kind of feelings of euphoria for quite a while, but they shift between anxiety, anger, and depression can be pretty intense. I think I tend to cycle through my moods like by the hour rather than having a bunch of moods within a few minutes, but it's always really intense for those few hours. You know, like sometimes they can last for days, so that's always fun. Number 7, the chronic emptiness. So I kind of feel like this is partly due to the fact that I self-isolate, so because I'm not really doing anything, I'm not meeting with other people, then it kind of leads into the boredom. But, you know, even when I am around people, I remember I met up with my friend from high school, the girl that could have been my FP, I guess, my favorite person. I met with her at some point, and while she was all happy after having not seen me for a long time, I just couldn't feel anything, and it was kind of heartbreaking because, you know, I hadn't seen her for over a year because we'd parted ways after getting into university, and I obviously cared for her, but I just couldn't feel anything, and I told her that I was just feeling a bit overwhelmed, and I guess feeling overwhelmed to the point where I was having so many emotions that they just cancelled out and I couldn't feel anything at all. So that was like the most obvious time that I noticed it, but it's a chronic feeling. Like, I think I feel more numb and just apathetic in general rather than going through the mood swings. I think I go through mood swings more when I'm around other people. Like all of my symptoms get worse when I'm around other people, so I don't know. Like I said, I've not scripted this video, so I really don't know what I'm talking about. Just going off willy-nilly. I've got like the symptoms listed down because my memory is just terrible. The 8th symptom, anger. I used to do that. I used to have a lot of anger when I was a teenager, obviously. To the point where I had the police called on me. And I remember that day I was like physically fighting my family. And then they called the police. And I remember by the time the police had got there, I'd calmed down completely to the point where it was a bit creepy how unemotional I was compared to just a few minutes ago. I guess that ties in with the mood swings as well. Like, sometimes I'll feel angry, it just kind of itches inside you. Sometimes for no reason. Like, it just happens, I guess, without any reason. I mean, when I talked to my family about it, they always said that there was something that triggered it, but it was usually something quite minor. And I also have a tendency to bottle up my anger, so whenever I get into a fight with someone, it tends to be that I bring up issues from the past where I didn't get angry, I don't know. I remember reading something that explained perfectly what I was going through. Like, you have a bunch of times where you're angry inside, but you don't let it out, and it ends up building up, and then you just let it all out, and it's awful and intense and scary for me and the person who I'm arguing with. And sometimes it isn't even aimed at other people, it's aimed at myself, which kind of ties in with the self-harm and self-destructive behavior. I've managed to calm down quite a lot since I was younger, but it does come out when I'm around other people sometimes. It takes a while, and when I got therapy for it when I was really young, like 10 years old, because that's when it just switched on, and I was basically a horrible person after the time I turned 10. But yeah, I think I'm managing that quite well. Like, I don't think other people have said much about it. Like, I'll get angry at criticisms, or if I think that people are attacking me, I guess. Well, not physically attacking, but you know what I mean. So yeah, that can come around sometimes. And the last symptom is paranoia and dissociation. I don't think I experienced much dissociation. Like, I've had a couple episodes. One time when I was high, and another time when I was really stressed. Like, it was exam season at university, and I kind of felt like I was existing a little bit to the left. You know when there's slow-mo in a film and you kind of see the after image of a person when they move? It was kind of like that, feeling like that. Like, my body was over here and my hand felt like it was actually over here, so it's very strange feeling. I think it used to happen like clockwork last year. It was really weird. Like, 8 o'clock, I would just suddenly feel nothing and just stare into space for a couple minutes, and then I guess I would self-harm to trick myself into feeling something again, I guess. Paranoia, I guess that kind of ties in with my OCD, where I kind of worry that people are out to get me, or I don't know. I don't really know much about paranoia, just that you end up thinking that things are happening that probably aren't happening at all. So I'm not in therapy at the moment. Like, I got kicked out by a psychotherapist. I was seeing a psychiatrist for a year, and then they were like, you're treatment resistant, so we're just gonna set you off aside to a psychotherapist. I met with a psychotherapist and told him my life story, and when I said, I don't really understand the point of therapy if I'm just talking about my problems, I don't see how that solves anything. And he said, well, I guess we can't help you then. Like, he didn't explain how therapy is supposed to help. He just kicked me out the door, so that was fun. And yeah, I've not had any professional treatment since last November, really. After I last saw my psychiatrist for the last time. I'm going back into it, I think. My doctor suggested it last time, and while I didn't have the best experiences so far, there's nothing I can really do except try again, because I'm not where I want to be, and I'm at the point where I can't even work because my illnesses are just too much for me to handle. My foundation isn't quite ready for me to get into the workplace. And I was recently rejected a job because they said that I would be too anxious. I wouldn't be comfortable because of my anxiety in the workplace. So that's always fun to know. Ah, man, I'm at 20 minutes. Does it matter? Well, I kind of wanted to go over stuff like the stigma around BPD, like how we're supposed to be manipulative and abusive and narcissistic, which is just anybody can be those things. I understand why you might think that people with BPD who have scary rages are supposed to kind of be more prone to that, but really, I have a narcissistic streak, but that doesn't mean I'm a narcissist. Like, it doesn't encompass my entire personality. It just kind of happens sometimes when I want online validation or something like that, and I'm kind of thinking, I have great ideas, why is no one listening to me? It's not to the point where I kind of think I'm God or anything. My self-esteem is far too low for that. A lot of things have happened. The only reason that my psychiatrist was willing to diagnose me with BPD was because I had a pretty traumatic childhood, and people had to really convince me that it was traumatic, because to me it was all normal. Like, I'm not sure if I have enough time to go over the entire tragic childhood story of mine, but basically I had a mentally ill mother. I was kind of her caretaker for a while because she couldn't look after herself, let alone me. Just experiences with foster care. My mum dying when I was 13. Being raised by my sister for a while and getting kicked out by her when I was 16. Moving 200 miles away from my hometown. I was surprised to learn that that was traumatic. Like, people do that all the time, but my psychiatrist was like, oh, you've moved away from everything you know. Yeah, there's been a lot of experiences of mine that I was surprised to learn are traumatic. But I won't go into that unless you want me to. I think I'd rather not. I kind of always... BPD in general, I think, rather than being the disorder of mental or emotional instability, I think it's just we have really bad habits. We have really bad habits because of trauma, I guess. We kind of miss the part where we're supposed to sit back and think things through rationally, and we kind of jump to the mood swings and self-destructive behavior. I had a point with this, I can't remember where I was going, but yeah, I think BPD in general, for the treatment, I think I just need to get rid of a lot of bad coping mechanisms which kind of developed into habits, and to get rid of the habit of reacting emotionally to everything. I don't know what else to say, so sayonara. See you later.